So where does that leave us? I said the third thing I wanted to talk about was kind of the big picture. What is this election about? So let's imagine, even if miraculously we have an election that works, votes are counted, balanced ballots don't get lost, and some of the people whose votes were threatened are able to vote. The Russians don't manage to mess with our elections too much, nor the Chinese, and Democrats win back the House, which I think we can agree is the most we can hope for. What will really change? And I don't mean Obamacare will be safe. I mean the question of who is controlling our country and based on what. Because I think we need to start naming what is happening. What is happening in our country is that fewer and fewer people are controlling the government. And they are controlling the government. They are gaining and retaining their control by appealing to our worst angels, by making the electorate so small and so white and so Christian that they are assured of being able to retain power year after year, despite the fact that an actual majority of the American people do not support the values that those in power represent. Because I do believe that. I do believe that the majority of the American people and the majority of the American electorate, if they're all allowed to vote, would vote the bums out. But that's not what's happening. Instead, whoever wins this election, quote unquote, is not going to represent a majority of the country. And the people who it does represent, the people who are voting in this election for Republicans to gain or regain power, gain or retain power, are those relatively few lucky ones whose votes are counted. Those very same to whom the blatant whistle politics appeal. What does this sound like to you? Let's look at Trump's latest attack, this time not against particular groups of people, but against the Constitution itself, namely its guarantee of birthright citizenship. Now, I'm sure many of us had never really thought about the concept of birthright citizenship before last week. It is not exclusive to the U.S., but it is part of the U.S. Constitution. 14th Amendment, Section 1. Says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That's birthright citizenship. That means if you're born here or you have been naturalized here, you are a U.S. citizen. And Trump is now saying that is a crazy policy. It makes no sense. It's totally counter to our national ideals and the concept of making America great again, and it's a crazy policy, and he is going to overturn it. He's going to write an executive order, and he's going to overturn it. And everyone's saying, well, he can't do that. He can't do that. And people are saying, well, he can't do that. That's not how our Constitution works. That's not how our democracy works. He can't do that. And my question for you is, who's going to stop him? I mean, just think for a moment about the fact that it's even a question whether the Dems are going to regain control of Congress and impeach Trump. I mean, 2 years ago, it seemed to me anyway, that having to wait till the midterms was too long to get rid of this guy, to stop this attack on our democracy. And here we are, 3 days out. And as a betting person, I'm not betting on anything changing. So what does that tell us? This isn't supposed to be how our democracy works. You know what else the 14th Amendment of the Constitution says? After the part, birthright citizenship. This is all in the first paragraph of the 14th Amendment. Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That's the part that he says is crazy, and he's going to overturn it with the stroke of a pen. The next three sentences of the same paragraph, 14th Amendment, Section 1, are, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So that should sound kind of familiar. The 14th Amendment is where the Due Process Clause resides, and it's where the Equal Protection Clause resides. What's so important about those two things? They are what grant individual citizens of the United States their power, their rights, their ability to seek redress against government. So if a section of the 14th Amendment can be determined to be crazy policy and overturned by the stroke of a pen, we're talking about more than this concept of birthright citizenship. Don't be fooled. This election is not about legislative policy and spending priorities. We know that. That's not a hard argument to make. But nor is it simply a distraction. And indeed, don't be distracted by the idea, the argument, that the election is a distraction. It's not a distraction. But it is important for reasons other than policy. As I see it, this election is about legitimizing a consolidation of power at the top by a group of white, exceptions proving the rule, Christian, exceptions proving the rule, patriarchal and racist men, exceptions proving the rule, who represent only a fraction of the American electorate and even less of the American will. Around the time of the Kavanaugh confirmation, the Washington Post had a piece analyzing the hearings and the confirmation process and noted that Kavanaugh will be the first justice nominated by someone who lost the popular vote to earn his seat on the bench with support from senators representing less than half of the country, while having his nomination opposed by a majority of the country. Okay? This is not government by the will of the people. This is government by someone who lost the popular vote, support from senators representing less than half the country, specifically against the majority will. Another fun fact, the only two Supreme Court justices in the history of the United States who were nominated by a president who lost the popular vote and who were confirmed by senators representing a minority of Americans are Justice Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch. So yeah, this election isn't about legislative policy, nor is it a distraction from the Russia investigation. It is what looks like it's going to be a successful attempt by McConnell and Ryan and Trump and Sessions and Graham and all of their minions to retain and expand control in an increasingly authoritarian and oppressive way. And they can say, look, we had elections. You guys voted for this. We're a democracy. We have free and fair elections. These elections aren't free. These elections aren't fair. These elections are not democratic, and they do not represent the will of the people. Let's not panic. But let's not panic. We have to keep paying attention, and we have to keep naming things for what they are. I don't know a lot about resistance movements in pre or early Hitler Germany. I'm doing research, and I appeal to my audience to give me some ideas. But we've been here as a set of human beings before. We've been here as Americans before, not quite here. And we have choices. Right now, those choices appear to be shrinking. Our traditional way of redress, our traditional playbook for fighting inequality and amplifying the voices of the disenfranchised, that playbook has been thrown out the window. We need to start, or keep, saying that and trying to write a new playbook. All right. And despite it all, go vote.